The remarks shall be related to the charter and measures of 5 minutes and shall be addressed to the commission as a body, not for individual members. Councilman?
Yes, sir. I'd just like to get a few things on the record here again. Just like to restate a couple of the proposals made at last month's meeting and add a few additional comments. At the last meeting, I proposed that the Charter Review Board be elected by the people. There be term limits on the board members, as some have been on the board again for 18 to 24 years. I've heard no discussion on the matter at the last meeting. I didn't hear anything. It appears, I don't know if you guys agree that this same small pool of people be appointed over and over. Maybe you do. If so, what's the justification for that? We've got a commissioner that was on the initial Charter Review Board back in the 90s. Probably had a lot to do with the original authoring. Been on every board since. And now he's one of the commissioners that gets to pick the members. It just seems that I don't think one man should have that much power in this event. Or should a small group of people have such a high degree of input on this very important event that happens only 6 years, once every 6 years. In the recent weeks, at least one proposal to provide the people of Charlotte County with more influence in the establishment or changing of county codes and ordinances was given to the board. The proposal was an amendment to Section 2.2G, changing the 10% currently required in subsection 1 to 5%. For those citizens that were not here last month, that has to do with how many petitions you need to gather to get changes to statutes and ordinances, get them on the ballot. I'm not sure that even if we got the 5% that we asked for, that the actual amount of signatures would come down to the number that originally existed. The population has seen tremendous growth, which makes it nearly impossible for anyone to get the petitions necessary. It's still at that unattainable level at the 7.5 that was offered by the committee in charge. This is still a much larger and more restrictive number of petitions than it was originally. My question is why? Why should it be? What changed? Why would you allow the obstruction of people's rights in Charlotte County to continue? Also like to propose that the cost of 10 cents per ballot be eliminated by amendment to our charter. Why should the people be fined for getting involved in their system of governing? Why should the people be fined for attempting to amend restrictive and possibly harmful legislation? Another proposal was a vote for those affected when the county wants to raise taxes, sometimes massively, with another MSBU. These increases in taxes run widows and others on fixed incomes out of their homes at times, can easily multiply someone's taxes well above what seems to be the state's legal limits. And contrary to what Commissioner Doherty, one of the main initiators of MSBUs in the county, says, we can do just fine without MSBUs. It's a perfect time for the old cliche that the county doesn't have a revenue problem, it has a spending problem. Spending needs to be decreased. We do not need to increase taxes. Another proposal was made to change the position of county administrator from an appointed to an elected position. This certainly makes sense, as the county administrator is probably the most powerful position in the county and has a huge effect on the people in Charlotte County. Lastly, there was a proposal to have commissioner elections by district. This makes sense, as the cost to run for the office of commissioner has risen greatly. Some of the candidates are raising nearly $100,000 to run for a county commission seat. Mail-outs, which are necessary to win an election, are out of reach for many in an area so large. Door-to-door campaign has become a thing of the past, and that's a shame. District-wide elections would make campaigns much more viable for the average citizen that wants to make a positive difference in his or her community. I know elections are about money, even though they shouldn't be, but here's your perfect chance to at least allow the people of Charlotte County to partially remedy this situation through a charter amendment to elect county commissioners by district. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
What's your name?
My name is Michael Bassano, and I think the opening today demonstrates part of what's wrong with government. You had an agenda. A certain speaker was scheduled to speak later on. I believe that she's getting paid to come here. I'm a citizen, and I had to take off work and lose money to come here to speak to you. And it just demonstrates how government greases government. and overlooks and dismisses the people all too often. You made an exception to your agenda so that you could grease government. Government representative that is actually being paid, and yet you made me wait and waste more of my day so that you could help government grease government. Some of you have been on this board for many, many years, but because of your silly rules on this sheet, I'm not allowed to ask you any particular questions. I'm not allowed to have dialogue. And you claim to represent the people?
Sir, are we going to get to an issue on the charter review?
Yeah, I am giving you recommendations how you can improve upon the charter. I am implying that you need to change some of the way you do business. Is that not applicable to the Charter Review Board today?
We're here to address items on the, dealing with the charter, not how we conduct the meeting.
Well,
Please get
I am
the-
here to tell you, you need to review your charter rules and improve on them. The topic today is charter review. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are you all board members of the Charter Review?
We're not going to dialogue.
That's what I thought. That's one of the problems I'm identifying, and I just prompted you to demonstrate the problem. You have told me you're not going to dialogue. You work for me and everyone else in this community. And you need to realize that when you work for we the people, you answer our questions in a public forum, not a secret meeting that has no recording, no video, no audio, unless we bring it. This is not the way government is supposed to work. It's called transparency. When you work for somebody, your boss is supposed to be able to talk to you, ask you questions, interrogate you if they choose, if they feel that there's something smelly or fishy going on. But in this room today, that's forbidden. It's forbidden that a citizen would dare dialogue with one of his employees. You got to remember, we the people are the boss. We are the master, you are the servants. And this is just a plain simple fact. You might not like it coming from a peasant, subject, citizen.
Is time up, Mr. Chairman?
No, I've got a timer right here. My time is not nearly up. I've got 1 minute and 25 seconds. The fact is, this is a laughable circus. A citizen being told that he's not allowed to dialogue with his own government. I wonder what George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and fiery Patrick Henry would do. I know what Patrick Henry would do. But if I told you, you'd probably have me arrested. This is sickening. You ought to be ashamed of yourselves, telling a citizen he can't dialogue with his employees. Some of you smirk, some of you laugh. That's okay. We've got a whole company of people in history that are opposed to this form of government. Tyranny. And if they were here today, you would not feel very comfortable, would you? I know you wouldn't. Many of you probably wouldn't even show up. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the commission? Is there anyone else to address the commission? Is there anyone else who'd like to address the commission? Thank you very much. All right, if you've been emailed the January minutes, are the additions or corrections to those minutes?
Move approval.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good.
You
I'll-
second it, please.
Paula Hess and Tom Rice.
Thank you so much.
Also, you were emailed the expense report for this month. Any questions about that? Not, ask for an approval. Thank you, Jim.
Second.
Second, Tony, thank you very much. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Under old business, we have subcommittee final report from Board of County Commissioners, and you should have that in front of you.
We have the recommendations in front of us, as I suggested, because I think that's the part we're going to be discussing. Is today to discuss and select what we're going to go further on or investigate
We
further?
can start that dialogue today.
Okay.
As far as our report, Mr. Chairman, do you want us to read that, or?
But not the whole report, I mean your recommendations, and obviously we have them in front of you.
Well, first, I want to thank the members of the subcommittee for the time that they spent coming to meetings, either after this meeting or on a separate occasion. And certainly, I want to thank Paula for taking the minutes and preparing this final report. And in recognition of that, I'd ask Paula if she could just read the appropriate parts of the report.
Let me find it. Well, our principal recommendation was to go over all of the things that have been suggested, some of them from the members, from the people who've spoken before us. And our recommendation is continue the present form of government as described in the charter. 5 commissioners, 1 from each district, elected county-wide at large, terms for 4 years, no limit of terms, and a county commissioner appointed by the Board of County Commissioners, and all constitutional officers remain as elected. Because we have had suggestions for citizens to have nonpartisan and election by district and so forth, and we mulled those over with the commissioners and among our committee, and therefore our recommendation is to leave it alone as it is. We also recommend that we examine the merits and the drawbacks of the Economic Development Director responsible to the BCC instead of the county commissioners as prior to 2010. We just had the presentation, and I think as far as the comments that I have heard and the questions that we asked her, we still should pursue that further. Everybody, on most of the other reports, there was a recommendation that we consider that very seriously, going back to the way it was. Did you have something you want to say? No. We discussed the language to the, adding language to the MSBUs and TUs to expand the requirements of the BCC. Exactly what they are going to be, I think, has come out of another committee report. We can discuss those individually. But perhaps we do have to add something to the description of that, of the requirements of the BCC, even if it's just to schedule the review and the sunshine of some of them. And then research the ramifications of exempting churches from these assessments. Now, I heard, and perhaps Kevin can tell me the reason for this, or our attorney, that if you consider churches, you have to consider all 501(c)(3) organizations. Is that right? And why is that?
Because you can't differentiate between what's a church and what's not a church. If you didn't do that, there'd be the judgment of, is this a church, is this not a church? You got to treat them all in the same.
Is that written somewhere in the law that we can't make an exemption just for churches?
I think it's based on court decisions. I don't think so. I don't know, Kevin, you know any.
I just think it's very, very difficult to define a church. Right now,
Oh, I see.
the IRS tells you what a 501(c)(3) is, you get the designation, it works. I wouldn't want to define a church. That'd be pretty hard to do.
So it has to be all or nothing.
Right.
Okay.
Would it fall under discrimination in any case? I mean, if you're doing that legally, trying to decide who and what, it's discrimination?
And I think it leads to, along what Kevin says, then you get into, is this church warranted, or is this one not warranted, or does that qualify as a
Right.
church? I mean, it comes down.
Like, who are these people, right?
Right.
I understand, okay. I
And
just
you've
wanted-
heard of, there's been
Explore
groups,
that
the
further.
church of the blah, 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 that has nothing to do with religion, but they've tried to get some exemption as a church, so.
Yeah, you can get to be a minister just by applying online now, I understand that. Okay, the other was explore adding scheduling of citizens forum, such as the Charlotte Assembly, to critique and make recommendations to hold the BCC and the administrator more responsible and accountable to the public. And we discussed this prior, if you will recall, and we decided that would be too difficult to formulate, and that we should just put it in as a recommendation in our final report instead of trying to put it in referendum. So that's the end of our report, and I guess we can schedule what we're going to discuss, you know, of all the items on all of the reports, because there are quite a few recommendations in all of the reports.
Why don't we, unless I hear otherwise from y'all, why don't we actually look at those now? We've got 3, 4 here, three that came out of that committee report. First one being examine the economic development director. Is that something that we think that we want to take up as a final vote, recommendation to take to the voters? Tom?
Well, have we formally heard from the other two committees? I mean, I think we need to hear all the committees, and then we start opening the conversation if we
Yeah,
start
then we
picking
list the
up.
topics and start discussing.
Okay,
I agree.
I'm good with that.
I agree.
I was getting ahead of myself, I'm good.
Not a problem.
And Catherine, we have yours in right after that.
Okay, our recommendation is that we don't have anything to change at this point. We did have some information about, Paul Pope was asking if he could change the GIS to his department. And after research on my own and investigation into the topic, went back to Mr. Polk, and he had met with his staff, and they determined that that would not be something that at this point that they would want to do this, so they withdrew that comment or desire. And they also said that they would do further training, and maybe that was what the issue was, they needed to train their staff better. So that was withdrawn. So at this time, we have no recommendations.
So that, no recommendations, okay.
And the next one in there is the
Constitutional officer.
constitutional officer. That's what that is. No, it's, yeah, no, the, that,
Yep.
Tom, what's this for me? So that's going to be other boards and agencies, correct? That's what I said.
I think that's the,
We've already,
staff subcommittee, that's who we were. And we did make a recommendation that the Director of Economic Development report to the county administrator instead of the Board of County Commissioners, but when we made that recommendation, it was really to further discussion on the issue. I don't know that we were 100% on it because nobody could, even the former director wasn't sure what he thought about it. So we brought it forward to have the whole group discussion. As I recall at our last meeting, I think it was Kevin that said maybe we should wait 6 years because the voters might think, why are we changing this again just after 6 years? So we brought it forward to have a full discussion.
Was that the only thing that come out of, for some reason, it's not, your report's,
It's just one page after, this is what it looks like. It's right after this sheet that Tammy handed out.
Actually, I put them in alphabetical order. It should have been the first one, then BCC, then...
It was confusing because some of them
Yeah.
have page numbers at the top, so I rearranged them. in order.
yeah, I see that one now.
Sorry, I tried to make it easy.
Page
Why
4.
don't I see this then?
Two of them have no page numbers, and there's a page 3, 4, and 5, so I assumed
Page 4.
No, that's administrative staff. Page 5 is constitutional officers.
Look at economic development, page 4.
But also another page 4.
I've got page 3.
There's 2, 3, 3, 4, 5.
Tom, we got yours before. You've got a number of items that, to look at back there on your recommendation page. Most of it's changing some verbiage within the charter.
Well, there are some specific
Right.
charter changes.
What would hurt? I'm sorry.
That's a good question. Was it your committee that was determining whether you were going to change the percentage if you were gonna, the citizen input, when they had to go out and get, signatures,
Yes.
that you were gonna change, or there was some information we wanted to talk about?
Yes.
Are you guys still discussing that? 'Cause
No, that was our final report.
yeah, okay. Because I just wanted, is there no debate now on that issue? You mean,
Well,
you're gonna-
for the whole group, I mean, I can be.
Okay, thank you.
So other boards and agencies has interview topics at the top of it, and down the bottom starts the recommendations. Is that the one we're on now?
Yes.
Okay.
Chairman?
Yes.
Would it be useful to point out, I don't know where it got in the record, I think, Kevin, that you recommended a reduction in the number of signatures that would be required?
We just felt that,
Yeah,
right,
yeah, but it's in the report, but it has not been publicly discussed as a change.
no, the whole commission is not.
We haven't discussed any changes yet.
Right.
We're just
but-
listing now what
right,
we're going to
Just
discuss.
bringing them forth.
I just wanted to bring out the public record that the change had been recommended.
Well, obviously, is this something, now we've heard them all, do we want to start looking at that? They're trying to dwindle down a list that we can start.
Well, I mean, when we discuss it, like I have some questions on some of the ones that were discussed by other boards and agencies. Like they actually have language described here that they want to put in it. And so, like elections for the office of sheriff, property tax assessor, clerk of the circuit court, and supervisor election shall be nonpartisan. What are we trying to fix? You know, like I would like to go into that a little further. So shall we list that as one of the ones we're going to discuss?
Well, hopefully, we're going to discuss all of them.
Yeah,
We're gonna
Yeah,
discuss all of
well-
them.
Well, what do we want to list the ones now? Do you want to, we've got from our committee, the Economic Development Director that you all agree needs further discussion.
Yeah, I guess let's, since I'm the first one in the packet, I think let's just discuss that. I mean,
Right,
it was a
exactly.
recommendation, and do we just vote on it, or how?
Chairman, I make a motion that we do not change the circumstances of the Economic Development Director reporting at this time.
I'll second that.
So do we get to discuss it?
What was the motion?
Motion.
There's a motion on the table.
We still have a motion and a second, now we discuss.
Right, discuss it now.
Discuss it now.
All right, well, as far as the report that came from Lucy and Piers, she seems to say it's okay with her to take the time to report to everyone. But I think she's in a rather peculiar position. You asked her the question about politics. So I think we have to make up our own minds from what we know, whether or not it's too prone to leaks. I think Mr. Brown has had a lot of experience in that area, and he said that businesses are very reluctant to risk confidentiality, and I think the more people she has to report to, the more it risks leakage. So I'm in favor of changing it back the way it was before. I'd like to hear from others about it.
Bill, comment, Ted?
Oh, I want to repeat some of what I said. You know, in conducting our interviews, first of all, let me just preface it that it's fine to get input from the commissioners, but I always take it with a grain of salt when it affects them. You know, as much as anybody being interviewed wants to remain objective, when they're the target of it, sometimes it's difficult, even though the best of intentions. And I think that's where it's our job to step up. And if a certain thing is required, that's the right thing, because it makes sense, then that's what our function is. Or at a minimum, let the citizens decide. But in this particular issue, and I'm going to repeat again what I've said before, from listening to some of the commissioners, one or two did give us the history that it had been changed because of some personality clashes. You don't change your constitution because there's a personality clash. That's just my opinion. You don't reorganize a police department because two captains don't get along. You just don't do those things. Because this is the mess you could end up with. I say that loosely, not insinuating it, but the fact that it needs to be discussed indicates something. But we're beyond that. But our responsibility is to correct it if that's what's warranted. As far as some objective looking at this objectively, I can't imagine anyone, or myself, I served in government 30 years, last 4 or 5 as a police chief, reporting to 5 bosses. It defies management principles. There's this item that's called unity of command. You report to 1 boss. No more than that deputy can report to 5 sergeants at once. And then it's a lovely position as a subordinate because there's no direction. Each boss can't tell you what to do. They have to form an oligarchy. They have to confer. They have to vote to decide to tell you to do something now. I mean, I just can't fathom that. It's great for the boss. Yeah, meeting once a week, 100,000 plus salary, 20% of the time. At meetings to report to the boss? I couldn't have got anything done if that was the case. Well, we're not meeting as much because I'm on the road. Well, what is it, a laissez-faire situation? I report then, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. To me, that's not workable. The other principle about it, and keeping up with the separation of powers, I still have trouble with the fact that somebody in the operation reports to the legislative branch. To me, it makes no more sense than if the fire chief reported to the commissioners, or the FBI reporting to Congress. There's the executive branch, which is operations. There's a legislative branch. Again, I mean, there's no direct supervision. You're reporting to 5 bosses. It's great if you're the subordinate. It really, really is. I think we owe a duty to the county and to the taxpayers, at least to let them decide this issue. If not, step up and recognize that this needs to be corrected.
Can I make a comment? Okay. Just to throw this out as a topic for discussion, can you give me the pros and cons of making it the other way? In other words, I want to hear the pros for doing it. I want to hear the cons also, not just the pros of switching it the other way. What would be the pros and cons?
You asking me?
Yes.
It'll be the converse of everything. 1 boss, 1 subordinate. Be able to take a direct order from the boss. Ray Sandrock doesn't have to confer with 4 other people to say, hey, if it's okay that you do this today, or I want you to do this, or I need you to prepare this report for me. All right, I got to confer with the other 4 people. That defies common sense.
And
and that's typical government. We've created a bureaucracy.
And I mentioned the shortcoming, the more people you report to, the more possibilities for leakage, and outside businesses are very concerned about that.
I understand that, but to be a correct debate, you should throw out there what are the pros in doing this also. I want to hear the pros on the opposing side of why this would work. So tell me, you don't think it would work at all?
Well, she says there's certain merit to it because she has a good relationship with the commissioners, and she feels that in their position they should know a little bit more about economic development. You heard her say all the pros.
But I'm talking about you guys, and you're the one presenting this to us now, and I just want to hear what you think the pros are. You do not think that those are legitimate pros, what she said? And that she's
I think, she has a very good reason for saying what she says, but we have to weigh what she says against the political ramifications of her suggesting that she does not want to report to the Board of County Commissioners.
I think that's an assumption, and I think that should have been asked of her.
Well, then you're negative as far as changing it is concerned.
No, I'm here for the pros and cons. I want to hear both sides. Just because I'm asking that question that's something that should be asked of her.
Captain, it violates every management principle known to man to have it set up this way.
Okay, you guys, listen, the tone is, look, if we only debate one side, have we really done this justice?
Well, we're looking for the merits and the shortcomings. That's what I said. We're going to examine the merits and the drawbacks of the Economic Development Director being responsible to the BCC instead of County Commissioner.
Yes, and whenever I tried to discuss it with you, I was told, oh, you're then against this. You can't assume that.
Well,
debate is debate.
Can you explain some merits and drawbacks of it yourself?
Sure.
What is your opinion?
I'm the guy that keeps using the word politics in all this. And what I saw as a concern, but not necessarily a deal breaker, when the previous economic development guy left, he didn't go after a discussion with his immediate report. There were some public meetings where it almost looked like he was saying, are you with me or are you against me? And that put our 5 commissioners in a position of assessing, well, you know, what's going to happen? Where am I supposed to go on this? If I go with him, my enemy over there might go against him, and this becomes a political ramification in the news for whatever that's worth. But I think that I certainly don't want to isolate the person from the commissioners. But I think when it comes down to who's the boss and who says you continue your employment or you're fired, it should be one person.
And I think that that's a proper debate, because you're hearing the pros and cons of what you say. And that's all I want to bring out today, the pros and cons of the situation.
Jim has his hand up.
Yeah, I'd like to look at this a different way, and that is look at it from a perspective of a private company. Okay, a private company, you have a board of directors. Okay, maybe 5 people, maybe 4, maybe 10. The board of directors make the money decisions for that company, and they're the final say-so usually in all the budget approvals and what have you. And I consider that, in this concept, similar to what our county commissioners would be. And they make the decisions, and the issue that we're working with an economic development director is a thing that it impacts this county in terms of our budget and in terms of what maybe we could go forward with. And when you have Ray Sandrock is administrator, and he has a full boat to take care of all the departments he has. And the way I want to make my analogy, whether you agree with me or not, is it's like taking a plant manager and saying, well, we got to put him on the board of directors. And that's not the way it should work. And that goes for the other issue we're talking about relative to making that an elective office. Then you put him in a different position. And I think you ought to think about that when we're looking at this. And the economic development director, if they can make the decision, it's not so much as they're not taking direct orders from the board. They are a resource to bring something to the company. And that's like going before any board of directors.
But
And it's different when you're...
They're like any department head.
Well, not
Every
quite.
department head deals with budgets, they deal with financing. If Public Works falls on its face, people aren't going to move here. That impacts us. If the fire department is out of control, that's going to impact our budget and finances.
Well, I think you gotta have where the span of control is.
Well, absolutely. The board of directors oversees the CEO. She's not a CEO. She's a department head.
Remember, let's be easy here. Steve, you're up.
I just want you to think about that.
I guess the first point I wanted to make was the 20% of time came from Tom Patton when we met with Tom. He gave an estimate that he spent 20% of his work week working with the commissioners. But then I want to fast forward to what Lucianne just said. She said that she meets with them each Monday, and if she's on the road, she may have to cancel that meeting if there's not enough time to meet, or if there's not enough to talk about, she cancels that. What I see, and it goes along really with what you're saying, Bill, is that we're talking about efficiency. She's the director of economic development. She has an organization to run. So if 20% of her time is spent dealing with commissioners and reporting to commissioners and then spending her time on the road, who's running the farm? Okay, I think her 20% time, if it's given back to her by reporting to a single person, increases the efficiency of her department.
Very good point.
I appreciate that.
My man, John Hetzel.
Going back to the previous charter review, when this decision was made to have the Economic Development Director report to the County Commission, it was based on a case made by the former, I don't know if it was the first.
Former.
Director.
Don Root.
Don Root. And Don Root made the point in making his case that he needed the direct input with the county commissioners because the decisions were made at that level, and he wasn't getting timely feedback through the process of of the administrator to the commissioners and back in order to be on a timely basis of attracting business. Now, whether that was some kind of excuse for not doing much or not, I don't know, but he made a persuasive case that that kind of time factor was so important to his work that he convinced the subcommittee and the full committee to make the change. And that was a big reason why the change was made.
John, go back.
Yes.
John, so what you're saying is that because he would have to go before them and get their opinion eventually, he would lose out on making a bid or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, may I add, my recollection of what he said, John said, was that on any given Monday, then he can go in and he can know by noon if there's a consensus on a particular package or program to go back. And if he needed to go before the Board of County, needed to go through the county administrator, that process would be, could be much more time intensive.
When he talked about this, it had to be because he would, okay, did they have to talk to these people in open forum is what I'm asking, versus go to each if you go to each commissioner and get their opinion and have that opinion by noon, is that correct?
Central.
Yeah. Okay.
A point was made by Ms. Pierce, which I think we should consider, and also I think Mr. Berenson mentioned it, that it's premature. Now, she said let it work out for another 6 years and see how it works out. We've only had 6 years of doing this and under someone who was mostly dissatisfied with the process, right?
No, he was not dissatisfied with the process.
He was not. Patton was not
He was
dissatisfied.
on the fence.
He was,
Oh,
But
okay.
he didn't.
He didn't go one way or the
He
other.
didn't point us in any particular direction.
Well, what do you think about it? Is it premature?
I think so.
I think it just hasn't worked itself out. I think it's wrong to analogize economic development with a police department or a fire department. It's the wrong model because you got to be nimble and you've got to. And if Lucianne, Tom, Don can't talk to commissioners, which she wouldn't be able to do directly unless she went through Ray. It limits her ability to be competitive in the environment that is economic development that she needs to be in. So I think if it's broken, we'll know it in 6 years, but I don't think we know that now at all.
I guess I'm a little confused because that's exactly what I was asking, and maybe I asked it incorrectly. But she has to go to Ray, and then is it an open forum when she goes to the commissioners? Because you just said individually. Can you expand?
Well,
on that?
if she was a department head, she would go through Ray.
Right, that's what I'm talking about.
And as it is now, there are 3 people in the county, the attorney, the administrator, and Lucianne, who can actually deal with the board directly.
Yes, and the other way that we would be doing it, if we changed it from what it is now, how would she interact, and you just spoke about that, with each commissioner to get their opinion? Because eventually they do make the decision, correct?
Yeah, she would have to go through Ray and schedule, a time, and then the 2 of them, I imagine, would meet. I don't know. But this is much more flexible.
And that's very time consuming. Hopefully you can have it done by noon, and hopefully you don't miss the bid.
And the idea too was to put economic development a priority. In that Ray has to deal with the fire department, he's got to deal with public works, he's got to deal with tourist development, he's got to deal with everything. So part of it was to recognize that Charlotte County needed economic development, good, solid economic development, and to give the economic development director the tools and the flexibility to move quickly and to emphasize it as a priority for the county.
And all of the commissioners, as we interviewed them, said that they don't ask any more than they have to know. I mean, they understand that there are some things that are absolutely confidential that she can't reveal until the deal is made, and they don't ask her to go any further than that. So, I mean, they all said that they understand that part of it. And they only want to be in on what she considers that they should be in on. So I don't know, maybe it is premature, but I think we have to make a decision one way or the other, whether we want the attorney to develop language or whether we can just,
May I address one issue? I'm sorry. Address one issue when we're talking about, because the reason this is all brought up, it seems to be, is because there's leaking. And you miss out on the contracts because there's too much speaking and a lot of leaking. Why aren't we addressing that issue? Why aren't we talking about, the recommendation is you need to tighten up and make sure there's no leakage. We're aware of this, and that's what we have a problem with.
Well, I don't think there's
Well, it's been
a
brought up.
breach of confidentiality at all. I don't think that was ever.
Yes, it was. It was said. It was, yes, it was talked about.
But I don't think it's happened. I think it's a potential concern. I mean,
Oh, well, then I don't even know why we're bringing that into the fray then, into talking about potential, because if it's never happened, then.
Because the more people that are involved in the process, the more likely there is a leak. It's just a matter of sheer math.
Yes, but if it hasn't happened, it's not something that
It's
we
not a
shouldn't
big
even
thing.
bring it up.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a suggestion.
Okay.
To me, the reporting structure and the access is a separate function from who makes the decision to hire or fire. And that is something I don't think we can really address here, but I would say we just let things go the way they are, but point out that we think it would be beneficial if procedurally there was some way that the county administrator assured access to the commissioners and that the economic development officer understands that the person that's going to fire her is the county administrator. And I don't know how you do that